Nisa Martinez. And my flashcard back. My skeleton. So today we're going to be talking about the skeletal system, which includes the bones of the skeleton and cartilages, ligaments, and other connective tissues that stabilize the body and connects everything together. There are various functions in the skeletal system, and they are support, leverage, protection, mineral storage, and blood cell production. Support, as we know, supports our body. It's how we move. Our bones are strong. Leverage is the way our bones move. It's how we function. It explains how they twist and turn and everything. The protection is an example. Our ribs protect our heart and our lungs, make it so as they're not as easy to get to. Mineral storage. Calcium is the most abundant mineral in our body, and that is because it's found in our bones. And blood cell production. White blood cells, red blood cells, and platelets are produced in red marrow, which is found in the cavities in our bones. We will be talking about the classification of bone shapes, and there are 7 categories, and they are sutural, pneumatized, short, irregular, flat, and long, and sesamoid. And sutural bones are just small, flat, kind of curvy shaped bones, and they can be found in the skull. Example would be right there. That is a sutural bone. Pneumatized bones are hollow bones that contain air pockets. An example would be our ethmoid bone. Short bones are box-like and can be found in our hands and ankles. Examples are our carpal and tarsal bones. Irregular bones are just that, odd-shaped, complex-shaped bones. An example would be the vertebrae from the spinal cord that form the spinal cord. Those are all irregular bones. Next, we have the sesamoid bone, and that's a small, round, flat bone. An example would be our kneecaps. We then have the long bone, which is just that, long and slender. Examples are our humerus, femur, ulna, and radius are examples of long bones. We then have flat bones, which can be found in our skull, parietal bones, just flat, roughly shaped bones, compact. And those are the 7 types of bone shapes that help us classify bones. We then will talk about now the skeleton. It is divided into 2 sections, axial and appendicular, which is what we will be talking about. In the axial part of the skeleton, there are 80 bones. And we can start with the skull. In the skull, we have 22 bones total, we will start with the frontal, occipital, the parietal, temporal, and the sphenoid, and the ethmoid is just a little bit in front of the sphenoid. We then move on to the face. We have the mandible right here, our maxilla, the zygomatic bone, nasal, the lacrimer, which is kind of inside right there, the lacrimer, nasal, the vomer, it's just a little bit behind the zygomatic bone. And those are the bones of the face and the cranium. We have the hyoid bone, and it's kind of under there, back there, and also some auditory bones that help us hear, obviously. The axial part of the skeleton has 80 bones. I don't know if I said that already, but it is composed of the skull, the thorax, the sternum, and the vertebral column. This is the sternum right here, right in the middle. We have 24 ribs. We have 7 true ribs and 8 through 12 false ribs. 1 through 7 true ribs, 8 through 12 false ribs. And the sternum, as I said before, the axial part, the vertebral column, is divided into 3 parts. We have here the cervical vertebrae, and that is 7 bones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then we have the thoracic vertebrae, which is 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We then have the lumbar, and that is 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We then have the sacrum, which is from here to here, and the caucus. And that makes up the axial skeleton. We then have the appendicular skeleton, which is 126 bones. Total we have 206, and the appendicular is made up of the clavicle, the scapula. We then have the humerus, the radius that's connected to the thumb, the ulna, our hands. We have our carpals, metacarpals, and phalanges. We have both of our hip bones, our femur, our tibia that's connected to our big toe, our fibula, our fibula, tibia. We have our tarsals, metatarsals, and phalanges. And that makes up all of the bones of the body. And an example of a clinical application where I would use the skeletal system would be in orthopedics. As we know, that is the medicine that deals with the musculoskeletal part of the body, and a clinical application would be something that we've all heard about is when athletes, or not even athletes, but just anybody, they tear their ACL. That does have to do with orthopedics, and orthopedics does have to do with the skeletal. Carpal tunnel syndrome are also things that affect our bones, the ACL tearage and arthritis. These are things that we can see that affect our bones, the skeletal system, and that I could be working with in the future. And that is it.